What if I told you there's a scroll so important that all of heaven seemed to pause, waiting for someone worthy to open it? Revelation chapter 5 verses 1 through 6 gives us this scene. John sees a scroll in God's hand, sealed with 7 seals. But no one in heaven or on earth can open it. John begins to weep because without someone worthy, God's plan for history appears delayed. Commentators describe this scroll as functioning like a legal claim or title deed for the world, a written record of God's purposes that must be carried out. So what is this scroll that no one could open? John describes God seated on the throne, holding a scroll sealed with 7 seals. Ancient readers would have recognized both Jewish and Roman parallels here. In Jeremiah 32, land purchases required sealed documents that could only be opened by the rightful redeemer. In Roman practice, a person's will was sealed 7 times to ensure its validity and confidentiality until execution. Drawing on both of these cultural images, commentators suggest this scroll symbolizes God's written plan and legal claim to history, a record of his purposes that only the rightful heir can open. Then a mighty angel announces, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" A search stretches across heaven and earth, yet no one appears qualified. Not angels, not prophets, not rulers of men. John begins to weep, because without anyone fit to open the scroll, God's plan for setting the world right seems suspended. It is as if the fulfillment of redemption stalls before his eyes. The anticipation in heaven sharpens, almost unbearable, as all wait for a worthy one to step forward. This scene makes an essential point. No human authority can reclaim what was lost. No earthly king or mighty figure has the righteousness or the standing to execute God's decrees. The scroll requires someone who unites divine authority with genuine humanity, able both to redeem and to judge. It demands a mediator who bridges the gap left by sin, and here the stakes are clear. As the seals are opened, they release the judgments described in Revelation 6 through 8. These are not distant or abstract symbols. They shape the very unfolding of history. At this turning point, hope enters. An elder speaks to John and points to one who has prevailed, the one who will open the scroll. His identity comes with 2 powerful titles, drawn directly from the promises of Scripture. John hears them first, and they summon all the weight of expectation for a conquering Messiah. But what John sees next overturns every assumption about how power works in God's kingdom, setting the stage for the most striking image in the vision. John then hears the elder proclaim 2 messianic titles, the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the Root of David. The first echoes Genesis chapter 49, 9 through 10, where Jacob prophesied that from Judah would come a ruler to whom the nations would obey. The second echoes Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 and 11 verses 10, where the promised shoot from David's line would rise up to rule and bring hope to the nations. Taken together, these titles identify the Messiah as the long-awaited king who would reign with strength and restore God's kingdom. Naturally, these names stir an image of conquering power. The lion suggests majesty and victory over enemies, the kind of ruler Israel expected to overthrow oppressors and restore David's throne. Yet when John turns to see this lion, he does not see a predator poised for battle. Instead, he sees a lamb standing as though slain. This lamb is no ordinary figure. It bears 7 horns, representing complete authority and power, and 7 eyes, which the text itself explains as the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. In other words, the Lamb possesses perfect strength and all-encompassing knowledge through the Spirit's presence. The wounds are still visible, even though the Lamb stands alive. Commentators note that John describes it as though slain, to show that Christ's sacrifice is not just a past event, but a present and ongoing reality. The effectiveness of his death continues to stand before God. Here lies the deliberate paradox. The elder announces a lion, but John beholds a slain lamb. Both images belong to the same Messiah. As the lion, Jesus rightfully rules with divine authority. As the lamb, he gained that right by giving his life for humanity. His throne exists because of his cross. This is why he alone meets the requirement to open the scroll. He unites the sovereign power of God with the suffering obedience of man. The one who holds authority is the same one who carried sin to death, satisfying both divine justice and human need. Christ's right to act flows from his sacrifice. His scars are the marks of his qualification, not his defeat. And this moment, when he takes the scroll, ushers in a response from heaven itself, a response that recognizes his worth in the most profound way. The moment worship begins in heaven, the focus shifts entirely to the Lamb. Revelation describes harps being played and golden bowls filled with incense, which are the prayers of the saints. This detail ties the worship directly to the lives of God's people, showing that the prayers of believers across generations are part of this heavenly chorus. Psalm 141 verse 2 describes prayer as incense rising before God, and here we see that image fulfilled as worship and intercession unite before the throne. The 4 living creatures and the 24 elders are the first to fall before the Lamb. Their worship centers on one truth: you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain. The Lamb's authority rests not in force but in his sacrifice. His death secures the right to rule, proving that true kingship comes through giving his life rather than taking power by strength. The song continues in Revelation 5 verses 9 and 10, declaring that through his blood he redeemed people from every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and made them kings and priests to our God. This shows the scope of redemption. It reaches across all human boundaries and fulfills God's promise that every nation would be blessed through Abraham. Believers are not only forgiven but also appointed to reign with Christ and to serve him in holiness. The vision then expands as countless angels surround the throne, their voices adding to the chorus. Their sevenfold praise, power, riches, wisdom, strength, honor, glory, and blessing is language drawn from worship of God alone. By applying these attributes to the Lamb, Revelation makes clear that Jesus shares fully in the honor due to God. His worthiness is inseparable from his deity, displayed through his sacrificial victory. At the climax, every creature in heaven, on earth, and even under the earth joins in the proclamation. The scope is universal. All of creation acknowledges the Lamb's supremacy. This is not worship coerced by fear, but recognition of a victory achieved through love. The final note of worship comes not from a throne seized by force, but from wounds that testify to triumph. This vision of worship gives us the pattern for understanding greatness. The Lamb reigns because he was slain, and his sacrifice is the foundation of his glory. And it is with that truth in mind that the vision draws to a close. Because the crucified Lamb is also the conquering Lion, we can trust him to carry out God's just plan and bring the promised restoration. His death secured the right to rule, and his resurrection proves his authority over history. The scars that mark the Lamb are his credentials to reclaim the world. How does seeing Christ as both Lion and Lamb change the way you think about earthly power and the coming reign? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear from you. If this teaching strengthened your view of Christ's authority, subscribe to The Final Watchman, where we take Scripture seriously and let the Word speak. Thanks for watching, and as always, God bless you and yours.